Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi responds to allegations of an Indian assassination plot in the US. Says New Delhi will look into evidence, but India-US ties would not be derailed by few incidents. India reviews Covid-19 situation after JN1 subvariant of the coronavirus is detected. Health Minister says it's important to remain alert and prepare against new and emerging strains. A court in the U.S. state of Colorado rules that Donald Trump's role in the 2021 riots renders him ineligible to appear on the state's 2024 presidential primary election. And South Africa levels the series against India with a win in the second ODI. Tony de Zorzi scores maiden century. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has responded to allegations of an Indian assassination plot in the US, saying that he will look into evidence, but diplomatic ties between India and the US would not be derailed by few incidents. In an interview to the Financial Times newspaper published from the UK, Prime Minister Modi said, "We need to accept the fact that we are living in the era of multilateralism and the world is interconnected as well as interdependent. This reality compels us to recognize that absolute agreement on all matters cannot be a prerequisite for collaboration." Noting that India was deeply concerned about the activities of certain extremist groups based overseas, the Prime Minister said, "These elements, under the guise of freedom of expression, have engaged in intimidation and incited violence." Right, so that was the excerpt from India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's interview to Financial Times, where he responds to allegations of an alleged Indian assassination plot in the US. He says India-US ties will not be derailed by few incidents. The UK says a 14th round of talks with India on a free trade deal will take place in January. The British Parliament has received an update on the latest negotiations, as DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
The update comes in the form of a written ministerial statement from Greg Hands, who is Minister of State for Trade Policy. He says the 13th round of free trade agreement talks wrapped up on the 15th of December, with negotiations having taken place in London and in Delhi in what is described as a hybrid fashion. The minister says that a comprehensive and ambitious FTA remains the goal, and he insists that a balanced deal can strengthen the economic links between London and India. Greg Hands' update says that the 13th round of talks focused on issues around goods, services and investment, and that the UK government, in his words, will not compromise on things like environmental, animal welfare, food and labour protections. And his statement stresses that there are no plans to change our immigration policy. The minister has confirmed that the next round of FTA talks will start in January 2024. Ollie Barrett in London, reporting for DD India.
India's economy is growing faster than any other major economy. It's also becoming a top investment destination. This, according to Professor Brunello Rosa, the CEO of Rosa and Rubini Associates. He lauds India's economic moves and hails the latest IMF report. Take a listen.
the IMF releases Article 4 report for India, a report in which the IMF praised many of the policy decisions that have been made in India by the various actors, the government for adopting sound fiscal policies. This has made India one of the key engines of economic activity at global level, with a contribution of 16% to global growth, which is remarkable for the country.
After proceedings resumed in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of the country's parliament, they were marked by adjournments, but the legislative business finally resumed afternoon. Bharatiya Nyaya Second Sanhita 2023, the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Second Sanhita 2023 and the Bharatiya Sakshya Second Bill 2023 have been taken up for further consideration and passing in the Lok Sabha. Meanwhile, India's upper house, or the Rajya Sabha, was adjourned to meet again at 2 p.m. local time. All right, joining me is my colleague Vikas Sarthi for more on the proceedings in India's parliament. Vikas, how was the discussion coming along in the Lok Sabha on, one, the criminal law bills to replace the Indian Penal Code, the Code of Criminal Procedure and the Evidence Act, and two, the telecom bill to regulate all online services? Now, what makes these two bills so important? Explain this significance, if you will.
Right, Ramesh. So these bills are very important to each and every person. In fact, the bill related to criminal justice system, these bills were introduced in August 2023 during monsoon session. At that point in time, opposition demanded that it should be sent to the standing committee. Now, a standing committee has given its vital inputs, and as you just mentioned, that Lok Sabha is discussing these three bills together. So these bills are going to replace the colonial legislation, which were IPC, CRPC, and Evidence Act. And now we have several changes in new proposed legislation. The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or the Indian Justice Code, provides that there are some crimes and offences will be part of this particular code earlier, like terrorism, and activities related to financial crimes were not part of the Indian Penal Code. Now, terrorism, organized crime, financial crimes, these also have been included in the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Earlier, they were not. There were separate legislations to deal with all those issues. Apart from it, some colonial era sections have also been dropped, like sedition has been dropped in the new legislation, and it has provided that in the crimes related against the human body, crimes related to the offences against women and child, in those cases, not only punishment is served, but also some kind of justice is also done to the victims, so that there will be provisions of adequate compensation for the victims of these kind of crimes. So there is an overall change in the way we look at our criminal justice system. Now the CRPC also has some very important rules and guidelines. Like it says that once the arguments are completed in a trial court, in the lower court, within 30 days an order must be passed, and after that, within 7 days, this order must be available online for the petitioners and for the respondents as well. So these bills will provide that our court works smoothly without any disruption, and
right.
to make that sure the whole procedure to implement the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or Indian Justice Code, several changes have been made in the existing CRPC as well.
Right. Also, Vikas, the Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur is likely to introduce the Press and Registration of Periodicals Bill 2023 in the Lok Sabha. What more can you tell us about this particular bill?
Right, Ramesh, this bill has already been passed by our upper house, the Rajya Sabha, and it is also an area where a almost century-old legislation was in place earlier. So in that legislation, it was mentioned that if any person wants to register his newspaper or any periodicals, he first will have to approach the district magistrate, get clearances, then only his application will be sent to the central government. Now these things have been streamlined. Any person who wants to register his newspaper or periodicals, he will have to apply through a portal where he will be able to know whether any particular title for his newspaper is available or not. So the whole procedure has been streamlined, and you can say the several procedures which were there to check that not many people are encouraged to start their newspapers and periodicals. These things have been removed. The procedure have been made very smooth, and everything is in fact transparent, that what is the stage of your application. It will be mentioned in the website itself. Whenever you check your application number, it will show the status, that at what point it is being considered and what formalities are yet to be completed. So again, a game changer in the way we have been treating our newspapers, periodicals, magazines, and registration of books, etc.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Vikas, thank you for your input. That was my colleague Vikas Sarthi reporting from New Delhi. In some more news from India's Parliament, India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar received a telephone call from Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the theatrics of a Member of Parliament on Tuesday. During the conversation, Prime Minister Modi expressed pain over the incident. PM Modi said that he himself has been at the receiving end of such insults for more than 20 years. The Vice President told the Prime Minister that the antics of a few will not prevent him from performing his duty and from upholding the principles enshrined in the Constitution. Reiterating his commitment to the constitutional values, Vice President Dhankar said none of the insults will make him change his path. India's President Draupadi Murmu also expressed grief. She said, and I quote, "I was dismayed to see the manner in which our respected Vice President was humiliated in the Parliament complex. Elected representatives must be free to express themselves, but the expression should be within the norms of dignity and courtesy. That has been the parliamentary tradition we are proud of, and the people of India expect them to uphold it," unquote. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar in turn thanked the President for expressing concern and for the timely reminder that basic courtesies must always remain. He said he is committed to upholding constitutional principles till his last breath and that no insults can prevent him from doing so. Meanwhile, NDA lawmakers in India's upper house, the Rajya Sabha, stood in the house and took part in the proceedings to express their respects to the chair and Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar after Kalyan Banerjee of the TMC humiliated him.
देश के बहुत बड़े लोग विभिन्न सेक्टर में जो काम करते हैं, बड़े लोग इसका खंडन किया है सर। हम भी इसका घोर निंदा करते हैं सर। और ये जो व्यवहार इन लोगों ने किया है, इनका पार्टी के पूर्व अध्यक्ष ने किया है, उसके प्रोटेस्ट में और आपके सम्मान में, संविधान के सम्मान में हम आपके अनुमति से लेके खड़े होकर पूरा 1 घंटे खड़े होकर हम इस क्वेश्चन मौन धारण करके हम इस क्वेश्चन आवर में पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं।
India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur hit out at the opposition after Kalyan Banerjee of the TMC insulted Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar.
चुनाव की पराजय से हताश और निराश विपक्ष, ये दोनों उनके चेहरे पर नजर आती है। हार से बौखलाहट और हार की बौखलाहट, और ये जो कुकृत्य किया गया है और जिस तरह से उसको पिक्चराइजेशन करके एम्प्लीफाई किया गया, उसका प्रचार प्रसार करने के लिए कोई और नहीं, श्रीमान राहुल गांधी स्वयं लगे थे। ये ना केवल उपराष्ट्रपति जी का अपमान किया है, बल्कि एक बड़े समुदाय का अपमान किया है, जिनको अवसर मिला। देश में अगर देखा जाए, राष्ट्रपति जी के बाद उपराष्ट्रपति जी का पद आता है, और उसको भी अपमानित करने में कांग्रेस ने और सहयोगी दलों ने कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ी।
Still to come on DD India News Hour. A court in the U.S. state of Colorado disqualifies Donald Trump from the ballot in next year's presidential election. Venezuela and Guyana reach a truce over a territorial dispute, but their Latin American neighbors wonder how long it will last. And Iran-backed Houthis say they will only stop attacking ships in the Red Sea when Israel suspends its counter-offensive on Gaza.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. India's Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia reviewed the COVID-19 situation and preparedness of public health system for surveillance, containment and management in view of rising COVID-19 cases in some parts of the country. Minister Mandavia said health is not an area for politics and that there should be no laxity in preparedness by state or national governments. It's important to be on alert and we prepare against new and emerging strains of COVID-19 virus. He called for mock drills once every 3 months at both the national and state levels. The meeting comes after a new COVID-19 subvariant called JN1 was detected in India's southern state of Kerala. Now, Health Minister Mandavia at the review meeting emphasized that his ministry is available for every support that states will require. He proposed a whole-of-government approach to tackle any upsurge in cases. He said there was nothing to panic about the new variant, that's the JN1 variant, and he assured that the virus was under close watch. Dr. V.K. Paul, a member of Niti Aayog, said in a statement after the meeting that there was no need for panic. He said most patients were showing minor symptoms and that 90% of the patients were recovering at home. He said an upsurge in COVID-19 cases is under a close watch.
It is not serious by itself. WHO has named it as a variant of interest. That means we watch it carefully. We keep on tracking this, keep on understanding its structure and so on. This variant has been present in 36 to 40 other countries, originally reported in Europe way back in August. So it's under watch. We are tracking the virus carefully. The JN.1 confirmed in Kerala in one case and 21 other cases in Goa are being tracked. So this virus subvariant is there in our country. And this is the same virus, as I said, which is driving upsurge in other countries. But we don't have to worry.
And joining me is my colleague Akshay Dongri for more on this developing story. Akshay, what was the central message of the minister to the participants in that meeting? What more can you tell us about his proposal of a whole-of-government approach to tackle this situation?
Well, Ramesh, first of all, it is a welcome step that the Union Health Ministry of India has in fact held a meeting with almost all the state health ministers and the officials, the top health officials of the country, to discuss this particular variant of interest that has been recognized by a variant of interest by the World Health Organization, the JN1 variant that has been spreading in several countries. It has been present in about 30 to 35 countries as of now, and it has also now been detected in India. So the message has been very clear that there should be no politics over health. It is one subject that should concern each and every state, every government, every political party, and that is why everyone should be united as far as tackling COVID is concerned. We have seen the kind of impact COVID can have, especially during the Delta variant wave in 2022, where India along with the entire world faced unprecedented challenges emerging out of COVID, be it the lack of ventilators, lack of oxygen. So all of those issues have been ramped up as far as the preparedness is concerned. So the central message that is coming from the Union Health Ministry is only one, that everyone should be prepared. There should be genome sequencing of all the patients that are being found with COVID positive. The kind of variant that they are infected with, that should be determined, and the kind of severity that also should be reported. So there should be comprehensive checks, there should be preparedness, there should be mock drills. The state should be prepared with enough oxygen supplies, beds, hospitals. So there should be no careless behavior by any state government or health authorities, which can in fact give sort of liberty to COVID to spread, especially during the festive season. There is Christmas, there is New York, there are parties all over. So during those times, especially, people should monitor their health. So the message is both to the state government as well as to the people that you should be on alert. And while the severity of the cases because of the JN1 variant has been low, it doesn't mean that there cannot be any subvariants. That has been told by the expert from the very beginning after the outbreak of COVID, that COVID can have subvariants, and the severity and the kind of infectiousness of the variant can vary from variant to variant. So that is why even while we are in an endemic, one thing is very clear, that we cannot be careless about the spread of COVID-19, and the state governments, the Union Health Ministry, as well as the state, the local health authorities should be work in cohesion to ensure that COVID doesn't spread and no lives are lost because of this new variant that is now being detected in India as well.
So as Akshay was reporting there is no need for panic. The situation is under close watch, and the governments at the national and state levels are doing all they can to control and monitor the situation. Akshay, thank you for now. Now, as Singapore's COVID-19 cases continue to rise, the country's health ministry is encouraging people to wear a face mask even if they are not ill, especially in crowded places or when visiting vulnerable people. On 15th December, an estimated number of COVID-19 cases increased to 56,043. Between 3rd and 9th December, a whopping 75% jump compared to 32,035 cases in the previous week. DD India's Andrew Wood joins us from Macau for more.
Well, the scientists and the doctors in Singapore say that most of the cases are of a sublineage of COVID, BA2.86. In particular, the sublineage is the JN.1. Now, the scientists say that there's no reason to suspect at the moment that this particular sublineage is more transmissible. In other words, it's easier for people to give COVID to each other, that this sublineage is any more transmissible than any other varieties of COVID. But it is still rather an arresting, enormous jump in the number of cases, as you say, from about 32,000 to about 56,000. The Singaporean authorities are opening a special facility in a big exhibition hall near the airport. The number of people in intensive care as a result of COVID has risen, but it's a very small number. It's only gone up from something like 4 cases to 9 cases at the moment. Well, masks are back. I mean, in some cases, in some respects in Asia, masks never really went away because a lot of people continued to wear them after COVID, either to protect people from normal colds and flus or because they were worried about what might happen, whether there'd be a resurgence of COVID. But basically, it seems that if you're a minor case, you can probably be diagnosed by your local primary care doctor, or you need to sort of talk to the Ministry of Health if you have a more serious case.
In a first, the highest court in the U.S. state of Colorado disqualified the country's former President Donald Trump from the ballot in next year's presidential elections over the attack on the U.S. legislature building in Washington, D.C. on 6 January 2021. The verdict applies only to the state of Colorado, but it has potentially set a stage for similar lawsuits to come before the U.S. top court. The ruling has made Trump the first presidential candidate in U.S. history to be deemed ineligible for White House in a rarely used constitutional provision that bars persons who have engaged in insurrection from holding office. The Trump campaign says that it will challenge the ruling in the U.S. top court. And DD India's Ira Spitzer has more from the western U.S. city of San Francisco. Take a listen.
In a 4-3 ruling, the Colorado Supreme Court decided that Donald Trump is ineligible to hold office again and ordered him removed from the state's upcoming primary ballot. However, the court stayed its ruling until at least January 4th to allow the former president time to appeal to the federal Supreme Court, which he plans to do. The Colorado court accepted the argument that Trump was disqualified as a result of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. That forbids people who have engaged in insurrection against the Constitution after having taken an oath to support it from holding office. Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, in an attempt to stop Joe Biden's victory from being certified. One of the main questions the Colorado court considered was what role Trump played in the events of that day. Similar efforts in 3 other states to remove Trump from the ballot have so far been unsuccessful. However, if the Supreme Court affirms the Colorado ruling, Trump, who is currently the Republican frontrunner, could also face disqualification in other states. A spokesman for the Trump campaign lashed out at the ruling, calling it a left-wing scheme to interfere in the election. Ira Spitzer, reporting in San Francisco for DD India.
Meanwhile, Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy is backing Trump. He called the Colorado court's decision an election interference tactic.
I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. A London School of Economics faculty explains what's driving India's economic growth engine. Tibetan spiritual guru, the Dalai Lama, opens an international Buddhist forum at the pilgrimage site of Bodh Gaya in India's eastern state of Bihar. And an Indian Coast Guard helicopter joins relief operation for airdropping food in rain-affected areas of the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi responds to allegations of assassination plot in the US, says New Delhi will look into evidence, but India-US ties will not be derailed by few incidents. India reviews Covid-19 situation after JN1 subvariant of the coronavirus is detected. Health Minister says it's important to remain alert and prepare against new and emerging strains. According to a recent IMF report, India is projected to contribute more than 16% to global growth and has emerged as one of the star performers. DD India's Jessica Taneja spoke with Robin Burgess, a professor of economics at the London School of Economics, about potential reforms and what's driving India's economic engine towards a sustainable growth. Take a listen.
How do you look at India's economic growth in the future? It's going to be the third largest economy. It's projected to become the third largest economy. It's still pacing. And what more do you think India needs to do to have more reforms? It already expressed that there have to be certain multilateral institutions that need reformation, including the United Nations, in order to be able to address the needs of the emerging economy, aka the global south as well. India has taken a stand at that point, but with its economic engines now working in full capacity, what do you think would aid that growth?
I think there's a couple of broad areas. One is this very simple transition from agriculture into services and manufacturing. And that is obviously a source of growth because people become more productive. But I think the bigger factor is once they move out of agriculture into some form of firm, India has been successful in having a huge mass of small firms and then some big firms. And there's going to be a need for sort of some of those small firms to be encouraged to grow to become bigger firms. And that sort of, people talk about infrastructure, they talk about regulation, but that sort of, I guess, encouragement of entrepreneurship is going to be a big factor.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the finale participants of Smart India Hackathon on Tuesday via video conferencing. Smart India Hackathon is a nationwide initiative to provide students a platform to solve the pressing problems of government and industry alike. This year, the grand finale is being held from 19th to 23rd December. The Prime Minister spoke to the participants about the role of youth in nation building.
स्मार्ट इंडिया हैकाथॉन में मेहनत आप लोग करते हैं, लेकिन सीखने का अवसर मुझे भी मिलता है। इसलिए मैं कोशिश करता हूं कि जब भी स्मार्ट इंडिया हैकाथॉन हो रहा हो, आपसे संवाद जरूर करूं। आज भी आप सुबह से ही जुटे हैं, इसके बावजूद आपके चेहरे पर एक ताजगी है, एक उत्साह है। यही ताजगी, यही उत्साह, यही आत्मविश्वास, नेशन बिल्डिंग की इच्छा शक्ति आज भारत की युवा शक्ति की पहचान बन चुकी है।
Across India, a transformative movement is taking roots. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, the largest ever outreach initiative of the Indian government, is bringing the promise of empowerment and a brighter future to the doorsteps of all Indians. In this series, the Yatra or the journey reached the Balian Panchayat of Udhampur in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The event was held at Sant Ishwar Bharati Avidya Mandir School, where locals welcomed the IEC van and listened to the message of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his vision of making India a developed country by 2047. Government departments set up stalls to advertise various welfare schemes. Resource persons shared information about the government schemes with visitors. The Indian government's flagship program, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, is being undertaken across the country with an aim to attain saturation of government schemes by ensuring that the benefits of the schemes reach the intended beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra travels through the Anantapur district of the South Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. As part of the program, for the schemes implemented by the national government were shown to the public through the campaign vehicle. Similarly, officials of the respective government departments explained to the people about the central government's schemes. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra pledge was also taken during the event. And in keeping with the Viksit Bharat campaign, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management under the Finance Ministry has prioritized value creation in central public sector enterprises. This has enabled asset creation through trust for investors. Now, value creation in CPSEs prioritized through balanced capital management policy and planning disinvestment transactions at right price and right time without value erosion. Since the announcement of the new PSE policy in January 2012, the Nifty 50 and BSE Sensex have registered a rise of 44% and 40.29% respectively, whereas the NSE CPSE and BSE CPSE indices have outperformed the big margin with returns of 160.49% and 128.66% respectively till November 2023. As heavy rains continue to lash parts of the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu, the state's chief minister appealed to the national government for assistance in light of the devastating impact caused by the heavy rainfall. The Indian Army and Indian Air Force helicopters conducted relief operations, airdropping over 10 tons of essential supplies. They have successfully evacuated the stranded, including women and children, from isolated areas and rooftops. The floods have claimed the lives of 10 people. A national assessment team is set to visit the state on Wednesday to evaluate the extent of the flood's impact. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has reviewed rescue and relief operations over flood situation at the State Emergency Operations Center. So rescue and relief operations continue in flooded and waterlogged parts of Tamil Nadu. A helicopter took off from the southern Indian city of Madurai early morning with 350 kilograms of food relief material for airdropping in the rain-affected areas of the state. And my colleague Anbarasan now joins us from the Tuticorin Airport. Anbarasan, what's the latest on the flood situation in the state? How are the relief operations coming along?
After the unprecedented rain in the southern districts of Tamil Nadu, the flood situation has been right now at most of the parts of Tuticorin and Tirunelveli district. The water level has been receded continuously, and the central assessment team has been arrived to Tuticorin to assess the flood affected areas. And the Chief Minister M.K. Stalin came tonight came to Tuticorin Airport, and tomorrow he is visiting the places where the flood situation had happened. And particularly the rescue and relief operations are still going on, and 6 helicopters from Indian Air Force has been deployed in the various districts, and food and medicine has been given via air dropping, and also particularly the waterlogging the shores of Tamirabharani River has been still in some particular residential areas of Tirunelveli and also Tuticorin has been danger level, and the electricity and the essential products, food and medicine has been need to be given to the interiors of Tuticorin and Tirunelveli villages, and particularly the people are very much a kind of need in that, and the food has been given, and National Disaster Relief Force and state SDRF both has came to rescue, and also the Sri Vaikundam railway station rescue operation has been completed. Around 800 passengers from the railway station has been rescued yesterday, and today they has been sent to Chennai via Vanji Maniachi railway station, and the food and relief works are still going on in some more interior parts of Tuticorin, particularly Sri Vaikundam and also Tiruchendur parts of areas, and the water level has been continuously receding, so the relief works has been now reaching the interior parts, and particularly the state government and central government has given a full opinion and full cooperation to the local level administration. So they are conducting surveys where the bridges and has been affected. Particularly there is a bridge in the Tamrabarni river has been collapsed. So now the bridges, the transport and has been continuously stopped, and now it will be starting tomorrow onwards. That is what district administration has said, and the school and colleges has been shut for last 4-5 days. Tomorrow also there is an announcement from Tirunelveli and Tuticorin schools has been shut. And this is update from the Tuticorin airport, and particularly the airport has been resumed today only. The flight services to the Chennai and Delhi has been started.
Right. All right, we leave it at that. Anbarasan in the Tuticorin airport. Thank you for your inputs. Appreciate it. All right, now take a look at some other stories making news in India. India's President Draupadi Murmu visited a village in India's southern state of Telangana, where she interacted with the local handloom weavers and workers in the region. While addressing the occasion, President Murmu appreciated the initiative of putting the Government of India tag in handloom garments. She also praised the weavers for using solar energy by quoting it as a good initiative. The Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, inaugurated the first international Sangha forum at the Tibetan temple garden in India's eastern state of Bihar's Bodh Gaya. The Tibetan temple is a tourist attraction and monastery where the Dalai Lama would stay during their visit to Bodh Gaya. Local authorities gear up for preparations and decorations ahead of the opening ceremony of Ram Temple in Ayodhya, a city in India's north state of Uttar Pradesh. The 14-foot-tall temple, improved with Royal Indian monarchy, to be inaugurated by January next year. As biting chill continues to remain in the northern Indian belt, the cold extended its grip in the national capital on Wednesday. A thin fog also engulfed the national capital of India, along with the cold wave that hit on Wednesday. Temperatures are expected to dip further in the coming days. Now, getting you the latest on Asian markets. In India, all sectoral indices are trading in red. The Sensex is down by nearly 300 points and has been at around 71,000 points. Nifty is down by nearly 100 points and has been at around 21,000 points. In Japan, equities were higher due to gains in manufacturing and electronics sectors. The Nikkei index has gained more than 450 points. To Latin America now. A territorial dispute in a corner of Latin America has sparked international alarm in recent weeks. There's now relief that Venezuela and Guyana have reached a truce, but their Latin American neighbors have been left wondering how long it will last. DD India's correspondent Mary Trini Mena reports.
This was the handshake that signaled compromise. A pledge not to use force to resolve a dispute going back 100 years. The territory in question, the Essequibo, in the Amazon jungle, which counts for 2/3 of modern-day Guyana.
agreed that Guyana and Venezuela, directly or indirectly, will not threaten or use force against one another in any circumstances, including those consequential to any existing controversies between the two states.
The border dispute began in the late 1800s when Guyana, a former British colony, established its borders. Ever since then, Venezuela has contested the legality of Guyana's boundaries. The Geneva Agreement of 1966 sought to settle the conflict.
El Acuerdo de Ginebra se firmó ese año.
The Geneva Agreement was signed that year, which sets out a practical and equitable agreement between the parties. Why has it not been solved? Because Guyana has always refused to negotiate.
In 2018, Guyana went further and took the dispute to the International Court of Justice, a court Venezuela doesn't recognize. Over the last decade, Guyana's oil output and revenues have grown dramatically. By contrast, Venezuela sank deeper into economic crisis. Caracas asserted its territorial claim more aggressively. In December, Venezuela held a referendum to approve the creation of a new Venezuelan state. Just days after the vote, President Maduro presented a new map adding the Essequibo, and he ordered state-owned companies to drill for oil and gas in the disputed region.
Venezuela habla de otorgar concesiones.
Venezuela is talking about granting concessions for claimed areas that are mostly offshore, which is fundamentally where the problem lies. What is difficult is to find companies interested in an area that is in dispute.
The territorial dispute has alarmed Venezuela's neighbors, prompting Brazil to take a lead in negotiations. Some analysts say President Maduro is trying to create a distraction from his own economic problems and stroke national unity.
Even though I believe it's highly unlikely that this could end in a war or an armed conflict, you can't rule it out when a government is using and waving the flag of patriotism and nationalism in an effort to unite a country behind itself.
Which is why many fear the truce will not hold. For now, Venezuela is getting ready for a new meeting with Guyana over the Essequibo and upcoming presidential elections, both in 2024. In Caracas, Maritrini Mena, reporting for DD India.
The Iran-backed Houthi rebels have defied the U.S. efforts to protect commercial ships in the Red Sea by promising more attacks on vessels. The group says it will only stop when Israel suspends its military campaign in Gaza. Nick Harper reports from Washington, D.C.
The increase in attacks in the Red Sea has led the United States to create a multinational naval operation to try and counter the barrage of missiles and drones coming from the Houthis based in Yemen. The fear is the continued attacks on commercial vessels spread the current Israel-Hamas conflict further into the wider region. US Secretary of State Lloyd Austin announced the joint naval operation while in Bahrain, saying it was an international challenge that demands collective action. It's been nicknamed Operation Prosperity Guardian, with at least 9 other countries helping to take part in the patrols, including Bahrain, Canada, France and Italy. But despite that, the Houthis say attacks will continue, perhaps as often as every 12 hours, until Israel ends its fight against Hamas. The group also says more food and medicine needs to get to Palestinians in Gaza. The attacks have prompted some companies, including oil giant BP, to reroute their vessels away from the Red Sea, opting for routes that involve longer journey times and therefore increased costs. Oil prices have risen as a result of the news. About 12% of the world's shipping trade passes through the Suez Canal and the Red Sea each year. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
All right, now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. Migrants from Mexico continue to arrive at the Rio Grande crossing point near Eagle Pass in Texas on Tuesday amid passage of a new Republican-backed state law that gives Texas officials broad powers to arrest, prosecute and deport people who illegally cross the border. Presidential election begins in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Voters in Congo's eastern city of Goma cast their ballots early on Wednesday. About 44 million Congolese are registered to take part in the presidential, legislative and regional elections. Christmas markets and tourist sites in European cities continue to witness a surge in visitors despite security warnings of a growing risk of attacks tied to the Israel-Hamas conflict. According to a report, holiday travel within the EU and Britain was set to climb 22% above 2022 levels, driven by post-pandemic travel demand. In Brazil's Rio de Janeiro, Santa Claus swapped the traditional sleigh of a bicycle and enlisted cyclists instead of reindeer to deliver more than 300 donated gifts to children in Copacabana Beach. Dressed as Santas, members of the Zona Azul Bike Club also provided 20 baskets of essential food items to parents in impoverished neighborhoods in southern Rio. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Australia's Mitchell Starc becomes the most expensive player ever to be sold at the IPL auction. South Africa levels the 3-match ODI series against India with an 8-wicket win. And Chelsea reaches the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup.
Welcome to Jaipur. Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour. From sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to all the news from the world of sport. ODI World Cup performers and uncapped Indians were in big demand at IPL 2024 auction. Australia's Mitchell Starc became the most expensive player ever to be sold at the IPL auction when the Kolkata Knight Riders acquired the Pacers' services for $2.98 million. Australian captain Pat Cummins went to Sunrisers Hyderabad for a whopping $2.46 million. Rovman Powell was brought by the Rajasthan Royals for a price tag of $892,000 while Australia's World Cup star Travis Head was snapped by Sunrisers Hyderabad for $819,000. Meanwhile, Harry Brook was picked up for $482,000 by Delhi Capitals. Besides that, names like Karun Nair, Manish Pandey, Stephen Smith and Riley Russo went unsold. South Africa pulled level in the 3-match ODI series against India with an 8-wicket win at the St. George's Oval in Cabana on Tuesday. South Africa bundled out India for a total of 211 runs in 46.2 overs before managing to chase down the target in 42.3 overs. Batting first, India lost Ruturaj Gaikwad on the second ball of the match after being put into bat first. Sai Sudarshan and Tilak Varma added 42 runs for the second wicket. Sudarshan then added 68 with captain KL Rahul and scored his second consecutive 50 in the process. To football now, Manchester City outclassed Urawa Red Diamonds in a 3-0 victory in the King Abdullah Sports City Stadium to set up a Club World Cup final against Brazilian side Fluminense. European champion City were troubled by a well-organized Japanese side during the opening half. City took the lead with an own goal by Marius Soibaten in stoppage time. Mateo Kovacic made it 2-0 in the 52nd minute. Bernardo Silva's deflected shot a few minutes later meant City could play the rest of the game in cruise control. Pep Guardiola's City, who had won only 3 of their previous 8 games in all competitions, are looking to become the 4th English club to win the title after Manchester United, Liverpool and Chelsea. They'll start as heavy favourites in Friday's final against Copa Libertadores champions Fluminense. Chelsea reached the Carabao Cup semi-finals. The West Londoners defeated Newcastle 4-2 after a penalty shootout. Callum Wilson scored the opening goal of the match in the 16th minute. Mikhailo Mudryk and George Petrovic emerged as Chelsea's unlikely heroes. The Blues came back from the brink of defeat to secure a 4-2 penalty shootout win over Newcastle. Mikhailo Mudryk scored a late equaliser for Chelsea after Callum Wilson had opened the scoring. The draw for the semi-finals takes place after Liverpool versus West Ham on Wednesday. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.